That way at the end we can kind of flow, a little bit and get everything going. But it's LGBTQ Pride Month. As in case you were living in America, it's very difficult not to know it. Now, granted, there is some momentum slowing down on this. If you go back to 2021, 22, this stuff was just endless. Now it's getting kind of, it's a little bit more tame. I used to walk into a Target or to a Walmart or any of these places, and you would see just all the flags and the shirts and all this stuff. Well, but on that note, one of these so-called Muslims in the media goes by the name of Mehdi Hassan. This is a gentleman who I've known about for quite some time. I mean, despised him. He's said so many vicious anti-white American comments over the years. So anything disgusting coming out of this guy's mouth is not surprising. So he was on an interview show with the Zionist Patrick Bet David, or David, depending on how you want to pronounce it, on PBS. And the David was challenging him by stating that Muslims were going to go to Donald Trump or the Republican Party because Muslims are conservative by nature, which is true. I've said that on this show many times. We don't vote, we don't partake, but if there's one of these parties that overall, I mean, if you can make that kind of case, I mean, the Republican Party by far is the better one. Granted, they're both going to support the Zionists. They're both going to rape our paychecks every month. They're both going to pass nothing that has any benefit to us at all. But when you go by core principles and what the parties stand by, the Republican Party is by far better. From a moral standpoint. So what he's doing is, from an outside perspective, you would think that. You would say, well, that makes sense. Reading the Quran and the Sunnah, you're against baby killing. You're against homosexuality. You're against all the things that the left stands for. Where Mehdi Hassan's like, no, buddy. And he was proud, openly proud to state this fact, which is highly disturbing. 52% of Muslim Americans only, not internationally, say that homosexuality should be accepted in the society. Now, if you've followed me for years here, this should come as no surprise. Nothing shocking about this. When you look at how these imams and how these social media influencers have steadily been steering the ummah in this country and in Europe a little bit the opposite direction. But in this country, they've been steering us to leftism. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. You look at any of these prominent imams, you look at imams I've worked with in the past, imams that have been in the masjids I've attended in the past. They openly advocate for supporting fanatical left-wing politicians. In fact, in the masjid here, I've talked about it before. The reason I stopped attending was because they kept on bringing speakers and people down there who were heavy for the Democratic Party and Democratic values. And that was, of course, to me, a big red flag to go. So here's this guy debating a Zionist, saying, no, 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 we're more gay. We support gays more than you think. And we're proud of that. And he even went to cite the evangelical stat, about evangelicals he mentioned white because this guy is a hardcore racist. I mean, he is scum of the earth. So he wanted to make sure to note that white evangelicals only support homosexual acceptance by 34%. So he's saying, here we are, we are better than those white people because 52%, we support homosexuality. Now, if you turn back the clock to just 10 to 15 years ago, and you saw someone with a name like this, with a Muslim going around telling everybody how proud he is to be Muslim, saying something like this, you'd be shocked. I wouldn't, because I warned people back then. I saw where it was going. But the average person who's caught up in their life, they're not really interested in this stuff. They don't really invest a lot of time. They would be totally shocked by this. But it's normal now. And it's going to continue. What is next? This gentleman, this piece of garbage, is going to come on camera and he's going to brag that the majority of Muslims support riba. They're fine with the banking system. What's he going to say next? The majority of the Muslims are happy to support adultery, because that's where it's going. If you look at the average Christian today in this country or around Europe, around the world, and you look at the way Christians view adultery, if you go and you look up Catholic doctrine, Christians' positions on zina, on adultery throughout history, it is strict. I mean, it's more strict even than Islam. But yet you see every Christian practically in this country, it's over 90%, is openly engaging in adultery. They have no problem at all with it, because that's how you shift the Overton window. You get everything to just slowly inch over, the morals start to decline to where something that was immoral 20 or 30 years ago now is casually accepted. And we are seeing it now, again, as I warned here on this platform, and I've been warning people for over a decade, it was coming to the Ummah. They were going to get this stuff in because they're determined. And people are sheep. They don't know how to think for themselves. Like Sister Layla was saying before I went live, she was talking to people about how these men in this country are a disgrace, these Muslim brothers. They don't know their deen. They don't have any conviction. They're scared. They don't know how to lead. And scumbags like Mehdi Hassan will come out here and will boast now. Yeah, it's working. And we're going to keep doing it. I covered here how the Rand Corporation had talked about this back in 2003 during the first George Bush administration, that there was going to be programs to basically de-radicalize, as they said, Muslims. Now, to them, what does de-radicalize mean? The average American will hear that term and they'll think, oh, it means no more suicide bombers. No, 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 that's not what they mean. Suicide bombing is not haram, not halal anyway. What they're referring to is anyone who follows the Quran is simply a radical. He's simply someone who needs to be pacified. And we're going to pacify them with entertainment. We're going to pacify them with adultery, with pornography. And if slowly but surely, we're going to get them to be exactly like the Christians are in this country, whereas Islam is like wearing a polo shirt from Ralph Lauren or Tommy Hilfiger or something. It's not something that governs your life, dictates how you think, giving you that God consciousness I spoke about here when we were talking about the Eid. No, it's just something. I'm Muslim. I was born that way. I really don't believe in it, You can have atheist Muslims now, which is code word for Arab, pretty much. They view Islam as a race. Obviously I'm Muslim because I'm Arab, but I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Allah. I'm an atheist Muslim. They have them. You can Google it. And they got gay masjids and things like that. And here again, you have this scumbag, scum of the earth, out here boasting about how it's working. The program is working. Of course, no coincidence, this guy was heavy in supporting the vile, racist, communist Zohran Mamdani in New York. He was at the party that was commemorating the election, talking about what a great day it was for Islam in America. And this is his version of Islam. It's Muslim 2.0, as I called it. So move on from that. We had another event that happened. We talk about distractions and entertainment and the changing of the Ummah and Muslim 2.0. There was a Champions League final that happened last Saturday between Paris Saint-Germain, for those of you who are knowing soccer aka football, and Arsenal. Now, you may be saying, how does this have anything to do with Muslims? Well, you'll soon see. So, Paris Saint-Germain, the French team, won. And the squad is a mixed, squad like you see with most of these. You have African players, you have native-born French African players, European players, white French players. You have Hakimi, who is a Moroccan, on the team. It doesn't have anything to do with race, at all. And Paris Saint-Germain wins, and immediately riots and looting happen. Now, I don't know. I mean, me being American, there is something about this sport that brings out violence. I don't know, maybe it's because there's not a lot of scoring. It's, as an American, we look at it, we're like, oh, there's not enough scoring here. It's too slow pace. Even many years ago, they started bringing children out on the field with the players, and it was for two reasons. One was to do a charity event thing they were organizing at the time. And then they noticed that it stopped fans from throwing stuff at the players as they were coming out the tunnel. So they said, well, why don't we keep it? We'll keep the kids coming out with the players. Anyone who's seen a soccer match, you've seen this, where the players are walking down with a child. Each one has a kid from the local community. And the reason for that was because people were just, throwing stuff, at them. Something, again, happens in America few and far between, but it's big. And when they have soccer matches, a team loses, a team wins, you see rioting. You see violence. England, I mean, this is not a racial exclusive thing to one group of people. England has it. You see it in South America. They've killed people who lost games. A goalie many, many years ago was killed because he gave up a goal in the World Cup. We've seen the Brazilian team have their buses pelted with rocks, for losing a match in the World Cup that was in Brazil back in 2014, I believe it was. And you see it in Asia. You see it in the Middle East. It's like, it doesn't matter what race, the people who play this sport, there's going to be violence. And you had it again. You had a massive amount of rioting. And immediately from the media, without hesitation, Islam. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, what? Are you kidding me? You ask any person who would consider themselves or be considered by the public to be a scholar of Islam, what they think about participation in sports like this. And they'd all tell you it's haram. It's not part of the deen. I mean, granted, to watch something for entertainment is one thing. But as I mentioned on here before, people miss the salah. People miss the core aspects of the religion to follow this stuff. They put this stuff on a higher pedestal than the deen. I mean, you ask some of these people, and I've seen it with Christians, what's more important to you in your life, your team winning or your family? Is my team winning? I mean, I've seen people I've grown up with or I've known who brothers won't talk to each other over this stuff. Fathers and sons fighting, verbally, in some cases physically, over this stuff. I mean, this has nothing to do with our religion at all. It's should be a simple, useless hobby, if you will. But somehow Islam gets mixed up in this, as it always does, because they assign Islam to anyone in Europe. The media does this as anyone who's non-white. If you're not white, you're automatically a Muslim. I've seen it countless times where people from Christian African nations, the headline will say Muslim stabs, British girl. It's like he's not a Muslim. They did this just even about a year ago. They took a guy who didn't even have an Islamic name. His name was Axel. It's like he was the opposite of an Islamic name. And again, it was Muslim invader. Muslim did this. Muslim did this. So, of course, those guys running, to blame Islam. Now, were there Muslims out there? Absolutely. We know this because there's plenty of Moroccans and Algerians. And there were native French, white French, if you will, and Africans out there as well. So among those groups, you could say percentages, 20%, maybe 15% Muslim. But with the Moroccans and Algerians is high. I mean, those numbers are in the high 90s. And they were engaged, obviously, in very un-Islamic things. We saw women being groped through the windows. They busted the windows down and were reaching in the cars and grabbing the women as they were trying to drive through this stuff. We saw people's cars being destroyed and all of these things. And people were trying to get to the bottom of it. Like, why? Why is this? Of course, we were to blame. But then you have this imam comes out. I don't know who he is. Never seen him before in my life. And he says France deserved it, and he was justifying it. Now, he was justifying, we're going to go to some France atrocities here, a mini history lesson here in a second. But for an imam to come out and talk like that, again, it is the heart of the problem here of what we were just discussing when you have Mehdi Hassan, talking about the 52% of the Muslims identifying that homosexuality should be readily acceptable in society. Who's teaching these brothers how to think? Who's teaching them how to behave? Obviously, this guy is saying that. And yes, France as a government has committed horrendous atrocities around the world. We're going to look at Algeria in particular because there's a lot of Algerians in this. But for a religious leader to justify the destruction and the damage of property of innocent people is just absolutely disgusting. And again, you see that because when France, basically during their period of time, starting about 1830, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia were heavily occupied by France. So a period of time where we saw concentration camps, massacres, systematic tortures, and an attempt to erase the indigenous cultures. And this is what the Jew is doing now, the Zionists. One of the first things they set out to do is demoralize you. After they demoralize you, they go to replace your culture, especially if it's a religious-based culture. They want to replace it with what? With secularism, mindless consumerism. You're seeing them doing it here today in America. This is what they've been doing for a long time. This is the game plan. And when they went to Algeria and to Tunisia and Morocco, this was their intent, was to basically demoralize, through violent show of force, and remove Islam from the fabric of these nations to make them mindless consumers. So we see some examples of some of the stuff that the French did. You have basically the conquest, or what they called the pacification of Algeria. This went on between 1830 and 1875. And they estimate the casualties here basically between 500,000 and 1 million, with initial Algerian population of around 3 million to more. So you're looking at a huge, huge number here of people that were just straight killed during this conflict. We see other examples like the massacres in Gelmo and Sétif, if I pronounce those correctly, where the French basically utilized naval and air bombardments to destroy villages. French settlers carried out numerous executions, death tolls in these between 6,000 and 45,000, depending on the sources. And again, these were mostly non-enemy combatants. I mean, these were raids and massacres on civilian populations. Overall, you had the Algerian War, which went on recently, 54 to 62, just an 8-year period there. We saw French forces relocate 2 million Algerians into internment and concentration camps. French military used napalm. Again, we always hear, why are they going into Iraq? Weapons of mass destruction. Remember, they wanted to go after Bashar. What was the reason for that? He's got chemical weapons, How dare you use chemical weapons? And here we see it, and they'll always use the excuse, oh, we're better back then. So they get to use it, but if you try to develop it as a Muslim nation to protect yourself, no, guys, that's not having that one. But we can use it. It's like, now the Iran nuclear fiasco. The only country in the world that's used these on people is the United States of America. But we are responsible. We are allowed to have them, but they're not responsible. Who deems so? The same people that use the weapon and the same Zionists who basically been bombing Palestinians to extinction over the last many decades, almost over half a century at this point. So you see French deploying napalm, chemical weapons against both combatants and civilians. We saw systematic tortures, waterboarding, another thing they were getting on to Saddam about how bad he was. And Saddam was not a good guy, don't get me wrong. Saddam was a human scum as well. But it's, again, about moral consistency. You can't come after someone for being a certain way when you've been throughout history. In fact, you're the ones that invented a lot of these methodologies and tortures. They use electric shocks on the Algerian people, and anyone who's expected to be a sympathizer obviously was going through this. Again, during this 8-year period of time, 400,000 to 1.5 million Algerians have been killed. The original close to 3 million people total in all of this being killed basically by the French. And it gets even more disturbing when you look at nuclear testing. Between 1960 and 1966, France conducted 17 nuclear tests in the Algerian Sahara Desert. These tests, as always, cause severe environmental calamities, damages, and are believed to have basically exposed tens of thousands of Algerians to basically radiation, lethal doses. And again, radiation is something that's cumulative. It happens over time. It gets worse and worse. But also it can get, the effects may show up later and manifest in the forms of other ailments and disease. So you don't really know exactly what's killing you. There could kind of be a causation there, but definitive proof sometimes not so much so. Now, France during this time would seize massive amounts of gold. In fact, if you look at the French gold inventory, France doesn't have gold mines. I mean, France is literally built on colonialism, on extracting resources, from these populations. But the thing this imam, needs to understand is, yeah, we can understand the anger that an Algerian person who knows their history is going to feel, or a Moroccan or a Tunisian, because obviously these things are inexcusable. Obviously, this is a act of a demonic, government. In fact, the same entity manifesting itself through Zionist Israel, through some of the things that the United States government has done in our name as well. But just the same way, I don't want to be judged or despised for being born an American. Those people over there in France who are not a part of this do not accept this. These men in the car that had their car destroyed, these women, and so on, had nothing to do with this. And I'm sure if you gave them the facts, they would not support it. You notice when these things happen, there were these outrage and these protests, they never happen in the areas or the people that matter, that had anything to do with it. When you look at what happens in America, anytime there's riots, look what gets burned. It's always the communities, the businesses inside the communities, the people who are angry. It's never any of the governments who are the ones that are responsible for their anger or their feelings of displeasure. It's always the innocent people who are just trying to make a living, just like the rioters, the protesters are. It's always those people that suffer from these calamities. And again, this is what kind of leadership, we have. This is a moment in time for these imams to seize the moment and to be the voice of reason. For starters, this has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. That message was not communicated. If it was, I didn't see it. Inshallah, hopefully it was, by at least some. I didn't see any of these guys. All I'm seeing is basically the ones who are openly supporting it. And this, again, giving Islam a black eye. There's already massive amounts of hate being riled up through all pockets of the Western world. Muslims are blamed. We're going to look at another one here as we close the kind of news where this same thing is being done again in England. We are always going to be the scapegoat. As I've mentioned here time and time again, we're the only religion that has to be responsible for what sick people do. As I just highlighted what the French did, are we going to judge Christianity by what the elite and the military and the governments of France did, the Algerian, mostly Algerians, most of all, but still some to Morocco and Tunisia as well? Are we going to say Christians are responsible for that? Absolutely not. Those crimes were not consistent with the teachings of the New Testament or the church edicts. But we don't need to be judged either for behaviors. Ask any Islamic scholar, as I mentioned in the opening of this, what they feel about being this passionate about men kicking a ball, wearing shorts and shirts, and dedicating your entire lives, and people identify their entire existence with these teams. Like, oh, my name is Joe and I'm a fan of these guys. And it's kind of becomes, we've even had nicknames before in places where I've worked, where we identify, oh, he's that fan or he's a fan of this, because that's the identity. They become, again, like I talked about, when they take away indigenous cultures, they replace it with consumerism. You are a consumer when you're a fan of these teams. I'm not saying don't enjoy it, that it's bad to enjoy something here and there. No, of course not. But understand the relationship. it is a consumer, to a provider. These teams don't give a damn about you. They don't care. If you go out and burn somebody's neighborhood, it's the person who owns the house that's going to be the one suffering. It's not the football teams. These guys, millionaires out there could care less, about their fans. And that detachment is growing as they continue to get paid more and more money and are separated from the common man. But yet the common man is the one out there fighting each other and fighting over such things. And then putting, of course, our religion, into it. Now, with another story that is, again, showing where this continues to go, and I fear it's in a very, very dark place, and that's what happened in England. Now, in December 3rd, 2025, this murder took place. It didn't get noticed by the mainstream media for obvious reasons, as we're going to see why here in a second, until just recently when the trial came. But Henry Nowak was stabbed to death by a Sikh who went by the name of Vikram Digwa. Now, the story, again, as I mentioned, was buried, in the press, because what it did was it exposed a pretty much intentional effort by British law enforcement to create two-tier justice. They're doing this because, again, they're poking the bear. They want to induce civil war. So they're showing the white native Brits, look, the police are going to always side with the foreigner, whether he's right or wrong. And we're going to see exactly what happened to make that make sense. So on this evening, what we do know and what we found out about this was sometime around 11:30, p.m. British time, Novak was walking in an area in a suburb of Southampton. He was walking home after night, basically under the drink drive limit, you can say. He's intoxicated. He began recording this gentleman, Victor Digwa, basically in a Snapchat video, saying things to him like, hey, man, you're a bad man. He's just being a drunk idiot. From these videos, you didn't see anything malicious, no provocations or anything like that. And this guy, Digwa, said to him, you're right, I am a bad man. And he would proceed to stab Mr. Nowak, or young man Nowak, 5 times in the chest and the legs with a 21 centimeter, or 8.3 for us here in America, inch dagger, including, of course, the fatal wound that would go into the chest. Now, Digwa's brother would call 911 and lie to the police, saying that this was a racist attack, that Nowak ripped the turban, even though we see the video all the way up until he was stabbed. This obviously never happened. He was drunk, saying stupid comments or whatever, silly jokes. People do it all the time. It's normal. You don't pull out a knife and start stabbing the person. So this goes on and on. He's lying to the police. Digwa called his mother, and the mother went there and hid the murder weapon, as they were going to go with this self-defense, angle. I don't know how they expected to get away with it because the boy was bleeding, like everywhere. So when the police arrived, Mr. Nowak is dying. He's holding his chest. He's pleading with help. And the cop is completely ignoring him. He is taking the side of the Indian immigrant, believing every word that he said, that this was some kind of a racial, he was provoked racially, and this was a hate crime. They're arresting Nowak. They're actually handcuffing him while he is bleeding to death. And they're dragging him along the ground. This video is now out there for public consumption. And these police officers, I would love to see them have a very, very painful demise, if you will, for this, because this is not how law enforcement works. This is clearly an agenda. It's terror on the British people, all to whip up hate because, again, they want this conflict. They want this civil war. We're going to get to the Muslim angle of this, which is quite funny how they try to tie us into this, again. So he's dying. He's telling the officer, I can't breathe, and being drugged and handcuffed. The officer finally realized they didn't see all the blood, apparently. They're blind. It was dark, whatever excuses they may make. They just continue to let this guy bleed to death. And finally, they realized it was too late. Henry died right there on the spot. And again, this Digwa, he was known by the police. He was a criminal. He was someone who was despised by his own Sikh community, is known as a thief, and a liar. The hothead was a term that was used. So again, you got a bad apple. We're not here to judge the Sikh community, on this. The question is, why was this guy even in the UK in the first place? What business or benefit do we have bringing these people in? This guy clearly had no job, was not contributing anything. He's probably on benefits, like 99%. Likely he was on benefits. Walking around with a knife, which England many years ago, they banned firearms. Firearms are highly difficult to get. And what happened, of course, when you take guns away from the law-abiding people, is you let only the bad guys have them, then you crack down on the bad guys start using knives. And the bad guys start stabbing everybody with knives. And then, of course, what does England do? Instead of going out and actually dealing with the problem, which is unfiltered immigration and lack of punishment for these criminals, they go out there, they ban the knives. The knives kill. The knives just walk with legs like in a cartoon and jump off the table and start stabbing people. Because, again, they want the chaos. They want it. And when you understand that, it all, again, makes sense. They want this stuff. So our favorite British patriot, if you will, Tommy Robinson, there's nothing wrong with British patriotism. There's nothing wrong with loving where you're from and loving your people, as long as God always comes first. But Tommy Robinson, his name's Stephen Laxley Lennon, I believe is his real name, but he goes by this Tommy Robinson. He's very famous to any Muslim who lives in the UK. I've known about him for over a decade now. And Tommy Robinson's positions are basically Islam is evil and every other immigrant group is good. So, you've got to go after Islam. Tommy Robinson is a known Zionist. He's put on the yarmulke. He's gone down to the Wailing Wall. He's performed his submission rituals to his masters. And this is what he's here to do. He is here to, again, whip up anger. And the Muslim community has zero, literally zero to do with this. Nothing. And you see what happens. The protests got pretty hectic because this family, that's one of the key things here, is the family was complicit in covering up this crime. The mother, the brother, they didn't see a problem at all with their son or brother stabbing this white British kid. So people obviously are angry, and justifiably so. It's about time. And they went to the home. And you had Tommy Robinson's agitating people, and they're all starting to chant anti-Islam slogans, anti-slogans on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're sitting here and you're looking in disbelief. How did we get mixed up in this? And again, like I said, with the Christians, with Algeria and Morocco and Tunisia, the same thing with the Sikh community. Whether we disagree with the Sikhs on religion, which we do, you can't blame the Sikh community for this. Most Sikhs are law-abiding, like most people in the world are law-abiding. In fact, I've broken it down here before. If we got rid of about 7% of our population in the United States, we basically have no crime. Most people are law-abiding. Most people don't cause problems. We got some bad apples that need to be dealt with. Just like we have, they have as well. Just like those Muslims we talked about with the rape gangs. All those brothers were executed, or should have been executed. Not brothers, I'm sorry, I take that back. I was saying something ahead of myself here. But the brothers in Pakistan is where I meant to go with this. There was a case recently that happened where some European tourists in Pakistan were raped by some Pakistanis who saw them as tourists and attacked these women and raped them. And the brothers in Pakistan, they executed these men because that's how Islam deals with injustice. That's what they do. And again, in England, we were forced, like we are everywhere else, to apologize on behalf of Islam for something that these men did that is not Islamic. It's like equivalent if someone is charging 30% riba on a loan. Those Muslims over there, look at this Islam. Riba is completely haram at any percent. But that's what they do. And they've been getting away with it for far too long because we don't have good leadership. Anytime we have brothers speak, they're hostile or they're actors, your social media types. They go out there and they embarrass us. They don't use intellectual arguments. They shout, they use emotion, and they start pointing fingers instead of basically defending their religion and showing how the actions of these men had zero to do, with the religion. So again, anti-Islamic chants ringing through the night in a crime that was not committed by a single, Muslim. And this is the future of America. That's the main reason, again, for we cover what we cover here is because, again, we're part of a community here. And it's already being whipped up. You're seeing it a lot now in the media, particularly the social media, where they're whipping up this anti-Islamic hate. And they're blaming us, again, for things that are not even Sharia compliant. They're blaming us for the actions of imbeciles and idiots and people who don't even probably pray 5 times a day. We saw the hate crime thing that happened a couple weeks ago with the 3 martyrs. We covered it here and we exposed it for, again, trying to whip up anger on both sides. We hate the Christians, they hate us. They get the actors in social media to go along with the script to fake hate crimes like Uthman did, out there in California. We fake stabbed himself to blame it on a white Christian. You've got Zionists staging attacks and blaming it on Muslims. It's been going on for decades, and it's ramping up. And I'm fearful that it could get out of hand. And there's going to be one event that's going to ignite everything. And you're going to see it's going to happen in Europe first. Europe is much more closer to the boiling point. America, most of the Muslim community is separated, spread out. It's not as consolidated in neighborhoods like we see in Europe. A sister here a few weeks ago even brought up where Muslims were renting apartment buildings and homes only to Muslims. And again, that's just more and more of this. When the Muslims immigrated to Medina, they were heroes. They brought morality. They were admired. They were respected. The people there bent over backwards, the Owls and Khazraj, to help them, and led by example, led by the character. Sahaba did, won people over, who had never met the Prophet ﷺ. They saw the evidence. Only their leadership, had met him. But they saw the evidence in the conduct of the Muslims, and it massively attracted people to them. And you see now we're not being represented by us. We're being represented, again, by actors, phonies, the worst of us. And this is not happening the way that it should. We should be bringing people in just by the way we behave, just by the way we conduct ourselves. And the absolute opposite, is happening. But just like what was going on in Yathrib at the time before it became Medina, you had those certain member of that community there was whipping up hatred between these 2 Arabian tribes. They were selling arms to both sides, trying to ignite conflict because through conflict they prosper. And when the messenger came, he unified those groups of people. And those other people ultimately were expelled and in some cases executed for treachery and treason. And I think that's what's going to end up having to happen here is that we have to understand who's doing this, why they're doing this, and we need to unify with the people who they're trying to fight, get us to fight. And in the end of the day, we'll win them over to Islam because Islam ultimately is the truth. And when shown in its purest form, it is going to win people over. But not this Disney Channel cartoon creation of us that we've allowed the Zionists and the media to represent for quite some time. So better days, inshallah, lie ahead, but it's up to us to do it. And I will field questions, comments, open for discussion for the final 15 plus minutes.
Okay, yeah, there's a question here from Brother Ahmad. He wants to know what, wait a minute, why UAE government are allowing some of the people who hate Islam and say hurtful things about Islam in public, but they're denying visa of Muslims from Muslim countries. I know some country may have issue, but I have heard some people have clean record, their visa is denied. And if someone had said something about Jew, Israel would never allow them. This is something about the government. I feel bad. A Muslim country allowing a person who hates Islam.
Well, that's a very, very good question. And I was actually going to cover something that kind of relates to this, but then other things happened. But Tristan Tate, the brother of Andrew Tate, the less prominent one, the more gentlemanly, because Andrew Tate is vulgar and brash. Tristan's a piece of garbage too, don't get me wrong, but he's a little bit more well-mannered. Well, he did an interview this past week where he said the only real Muslims are the Gulf Arabs. And he's sitting in Dubai while he's saying this. And a lot of people obviously were angered by this. And he specifically mentioned people from Pakistan and Afghanistan and North Africa as not being Muslims, that the only Muslims were the GCC Arab nations. This goes to Brother Anwar was here when I talked about the Muslim 2.0 agenda. I talked about Sneeko, the Sneakster, as I call him here, and Tate, and all these guys that were being recruited by the UAE to promote this type of Islam globally. They want basically, just like I said, card carrying. I'm wearing my Islam like I'm wearing a Ralph Lauren or a Tommy Hilfiger shirt. Islam is not how you live. It's not how you think. It's not how you are. It's just, yeah, I was born Muslim, yeah. I believe in Allah. It's no big deal. Let's go drink tonight. And that's what they want. And that's why they want UAE to be more non-Muslim. They make it difficult. You know, they don't want any of these type of people there anymore. This is not the direction they're going. You're going to see this continue and continue. You're seeing it going on in Saudi with the concerts and all the other types of things that they're doing. They want Islam to be something that just simply is not even visible. It's like if you came to America and you didn't see a Christian church on the street, you talk to the average person, you'd have no idea that they were Christian anymore. Go up to the average American and ask them what an ecumenical council is. They're going to have no clue about that. Ask them what any church edict or ruling was. They're going to have no clue. Ask them when the King James Bible was officially published, translation. They have no clue. But they go around, yeah, I'm Christian. And I'm seeing it going that direction with our community. You're going to ask a Muslim, what's Surah Baqarah? You know, in 10, 15 years. Oh, what is that? I don't know. I have no clue. I believe in the Quran. What's Surah Baqarah? Can you kind of give me a summary of some of the ayah there? No. What's Ayat al-Kursi? Let's give the basics here. Surah Kaf. You know, what is Ramadan? You know, what does it commemorate? Why is Ramadan in Ramadan? You know, all these just kind of simple. We did it with the Eid al-Adha. When I was talking about Muslims I met that didn't even know what that was commemorating. They had no clue. And we're getting to that point. You know, these people know nothing about the religion. Zero. It's a family heirloom. Nothing more, nothing less. My name is Ahmed. My name is Abdullah. You know, that's as far as it goes. You know, where's the beer tonight? You know, and that's what UAE is promoting. That's what Saudi Arabia is promoting. And that's how it's going. And now you've got this man who's supposedly a Christian. His brother was supposedly Muslim. He's supposedly Christian, even though neither one of them lived their life with any inch of morality. And he's sitting there saying, he's like, only the Gulf Arabs are Muslim. They know the real Islam. So when you see the whorehouses and you see the alcohol and you see the scantily clad women, that's the real Islam right there. It's like you guys in all these other countries that haven't been controlled officially yet, you guys aren't the real deal. These guys, they know the deen. And it's optics. It's planting a seed in someone. And people like Sneeko, as I've talked about here at length many times, they're there to get that message across to the youth that you can be a Muslim and drink alcohol. You can be a Muslim and do these things and have women kissing in the back. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All those old things, that's just old customs, you know. Sneeko will claim he's changed, and then they called him recently when the camera turned off. He was asking for a drink. He thought the camera was off. It wasn't officially streamed it shut down yet. He was asking for alcohol. So you see who these people really are behind closed doors. You see guys like the Warner who are appearing on videos, obviously intoxicated, obviously high on marijuana. You know, but again, why not? It's Muslim 2.0, and the real Muslims are in the Gulf, and UAE's fine with it, so I am too. It's all optics. It's all a mind game, because again, they're not concerned with changing your minds or mine. We're already older. We're formed. They're not winning us. They want your children. You know, they're coming after the 8-year-olds. They're coming after the 12-year-olds. That's who they want. that next generation. They're willing to play a long game, these people. They look how long they've taken with Palestine. They play a long game. They're not playing a short game. They're here to win long term. And they know, yeah, this generation, we're not reaching them. They're going to reject anything. But what we're going to do is we'll come for their children. And we're going to show their children through these social media influencers, through these policies. And we're slowly going to get Muslim 2.0.
Okay, another question is, what's your take on Elon Musk's idea that in the future we'll have a universal basic income where the government provides anyone with a guaranteed income? I honestly wonder how that would work in practice. In my country, the government often struggles to provide even basic necessities like medicines or simple painkillers. So it's hard for me.
I covered this before. I can give the brother or the sister. Was it brother or sister that asked the question?
Yeah, brother Ahmad again.
Okay, yeah, very good question. You must have missed the one. I covered the Universal Basic Income, UBI, about a month or so ago. And Universal Basic Income sounds great. It looks good. You know, oh, great, Universal Basic Income. I'll be able to meet my needs, you know, and I'll be able to create. And I've seen people even tweeting, oh, we'll have creative freedom. We'll be able to write music, and we'll be able to hang out with friends and go to coffee shops. Wrong. Wrong. With these people behind it, you know it's sinister. So for starters, if you're on universal basic income, the government can't even manage any basic thing these days without being stolen, money stolen here, money stolen there, and you want to put your destiny in the hands of these people, it's absolute control. And it's like a puppet master who's holding the strings. The strings in this case are your livelihood, your food, your water. They're sitting here holding that up over you. They tell you to jump, you're going to say, how high, master, without question. You know, once they control your survival, they're controlling your nourishment, your ability to eat, because people can't hunt no more. What you eat, when you eat, how much you eat, everything will be controlled by them. They're going to tie it to carbon credits, where, oh, you've consumed too much carbon, you know, this month. They're already setting this up, by the way. I've got a trip coming up, not next week, the week after. I'm going to California for 5 days for work, for a conference I'm attending out there. And I was looking through my itinerary and everything, and turning all my invoices in for company expense. And I look at the bottom, and it tells me at the bottom how much my carbon footprint was. For me, single, individual, for taking this flight. They're getting us ready for it. We existing kills the planet. So we have to be responsible in how we exist. You ate steak today, you ain't having it tomorrow. You better go back and eat the grass, eat the kale, eat the spinach, eat all the other useless junk they've marketed as healthy in the last 20 years, which is not. Taking away your ability to eat meat, your ability to eat eggs, your ability to have good raw milk. They've already banned that. It's very difficult to get anymore. And then the other part of this is the medical aspect of it. You're going to have to be required to have a health passport. We talked about this a few weeks ago. We were going through the hantavirus folks that they were working with, then they abandoned it, and they came back to it, and they abandoned it again. How they were already talking then again about this world passport, where if I want to travel to Europe, I've got to have all my shots. And if I don't have my shots, I'm not going. And I guarantee if you don't get all your shots, they're not going to send you that check. It's all going to be digitized. It'll be digital currency being used for this. So you're not going to be able to live a holistic life. You're going to have to take Bill Gates' latest vaccine if you're wanting to get that UBI. You know, you better take his new mRNA for this disease or mRNA for that disease, turning you into human 2.0, where you're not how Allah made you anymore. You are a science experiment, like genetically modified food. You have an immune system that functions with these injections altering the way your body works. It's not normal. It's not natural. We've already seen birth issues from these things. I covered all the side effects a few weeks ago of these COVID vaccines. Imagine that times 10, how sick and diseased the people are going to be. And it's misery. And for anybody out there who's got half a brain and they hear Elon Musk talking about these things and they think this is good, they just really need to start learning. I mean, they're really so far gone. I don't know where to start. I mean, Elon Musk has been a very clever psyop by them. He shows himself as this friendly entrepreneur. He's for free speech. He's for the American dream. You know, now he's attaching himself to white European American civil rights, which is an issue for all groups of people, obviously. But when these guys are behind it again, you know, it's something sinister. But yeah, that's a quick version of universal basic income. It's not going to be good, and there's going to be a lot of strings attached to it.
Okay, another question. What do you think about all these so-called meteorites or whatever they don't know, these sonic blasts that's happening all over the country? Are they really missiles or bombs being dropped by Iran or some country upon America?
Well, last week I was asked about the one that happened here close to my neck of the woods, about 3 to 4 hours away from where I'm living currently. And what it seems to be was something breaking the sound barrier. Aircraft, some sort of testing. A lot of times when, you know, this started in the 1940s, early 1950s, when people started seeing aircraft in the sky, and you started seeing UFO sightings and things like that. And what it was the United States top secret military aircraft flying around. It's just that people had never seen it. So the people, oh God, it's aliens, you know? And they set up that Roswell hoax to feed all into that. And it apparently seems to be like there was some type of aircraft that was buzzing around the Columbia area at the speed of sound, which will leave a pretty big imprint on anybody who's around. They're going to feel this. They're going to hear this. And again, it could be set up. They've been talking about aliens a lot lately. And when they start doing stuff like this, you better pay attention. They got something planned. Because they never talked about aliens that much. They kept it kind of hidden on the side, make you think they're trying to cover it up. Now they're doing full disclosure. And they're talking about the aliens are coming. And because they have the technology to fool you into believing the aliens are coming. They've had it for decades. I mean, all this stuff we're using on Iran was stuff in the 1970s, in the 1980s. They're going to start using the 1990s stuff to blow up Muslim countries in 2020, 2030, 2040 maybe. They'll start bringing out 80s and 90s equipment. These guys are so far ahead of the game because of the fact that they have unlimited money. They've always been able to reach out with resources to bring the best and brightest minds to build the best stuff, the most high-tech stuff, technology built upon technology, built upon technology. We don't know what they have. And when you see things like, definitely not Iran, it's something going on with the United States military. It's something high-tech, but even the soldiers are not aware of. These are black ops, private projects. Only a select few with highest security clearance are aware of. That's what I'm thinking. I can't prove that. That's just, again, my own thoughts on it, of what it possibly could be, just speculation.
Yeah, I agree, because like I said, right after it happened in your state, then it happened 2 days later in New York, then it hit Ohio, the same thing, a sonic sound. It's not an earthquake. Yeah. I said, it's hitting and it's happening in too many states. I think it's military experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because there was no seismic activity that's consistent with an earthquake at all in South Carolina. It's something that was in the sky.
Mm-hmm. And they said
so they're up there buzzing around. And
yeah. They said, oh, a meteorite, but no hole left. I said, no,
nope.
This is, and we got army, and every place it happened, there was a state that had army bases. I said, oh, they're experimenting.
Oh, absolutely.
Because all the states were the states that had big army bases. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're doing it on typically remote areas. They're not doing it over New York. They're not doing it over highly populated areas.
But places
they've always done this. You use New Mexico and Arizona or big areas for this.
Right. SubhanAllah. Any other questions? Okay, well, mashallah, this was a very good Q&A, and once again, I want to thank everybody for joining and participating. And Brother Yusuf, this was very good. Please make sure that everybody is here next Friday for the next Real Talk and the World News and Review. And again, don't forget, that this is the time has changed, right, because of the prayer. So make sure you guys are here. And yeah, 7:15. About we say that about around the time for the prayer to allow time for it. Exactly.
Yeah, once we finish here, Maghrib's about to start here in about 5 minutes here in my East Coast, where I'm at currently, East Coast of the United States. So.
Yeah, and then it's after that is me. Yeah. Okay, so inshallah, guys, we're gonna log out, and then my Q&A will be around 9:30 or so. Yeah, exactly. So come back with your questions for the Islam Q&A around 9:30. So we're gonna log out, and I'll see you guys then. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum. See you guys around 9:30, inshallah. Yeah, this was good, brother.